Intro music. All right, so real basic on the Voodoo-S, and actually all the Voodoos are like this to some degree. You have the two arrow keys. When it's activated, the top arrow will cycle through your gain. Basically, like you push this button and now you're in gain mode, and you can use the two different arrow keys to go up and down in gain values. Or you press this, press the bottom one, and this puts you into the different, the four different modes of display. So you've got white hot, black hot, white edge, black edge. The square button here, you use this a lot. This is you hold this for power on, or you tap it to go into the menu and to hit enter. This button here, this will, as a hotkey, you can cycle through 1 power, 2 power, 4 power zoom. This will also fire the laser when laser is activated. Objective, you got the lens cap built in. Some people remove this lens cap and do like flip caps. This has a diopter, so when you're using it as a clip-on or even handheld, you use this basically to finesse your image. This is the battery orientation, so positive towards you. This little thing here, this is basically your data power port. You can use a variety of accessories to either power this externally, which I'll show in a second, or send data to it. All right, so one of the cables that it comes with is a USB-A cable. So this is used to download images off of here. So you plug this into a computer and you get a Voodoo Viewer app from Pixel on Target. You just hook it up to your laptop. You can pull down images in bitmap or JPEG format. But it also doubles as a USB power source. So in this case, you can see here, there's no battery in the battery compartment there. Yet with this, I should be able to power this on. Yep, it powers on. And basically, this USB bank will last a lot longer than a CR123. So that's kind of a cool option. Let's see. There's another one to show. So this is the 5-button remote. This does not come with the Voodoo-S, but you can get it separately. It actually comes with the Voodoo MX, and it's more useful, I think, with the M and the MX. This basically gives you the same button controls as the device itself. This one also has a center one for firing laser. So where this is interesting is this actually has a pass-through, and so I have one end of the remote going to the actual device, and the other end, in this case, I'm going back to that USB. So this will still power because it's passing through, but you can use a remote to cycle the different modes like the zoom, the gain. You can do all that stuff from the remote, and it's actually kind of handy. I just find it more handy with the larger Voodoos. The other thing that's interesting is I mentioned disturbed reticle, where you can pass data from a solver. Is if you've got a Raptor S, Raptor XE, or a Mars laser rangefinder, and you've got the proper cable for the Voodoo, it basically looks like one of these, and it will plug right into the remote, or you can go directly into the unit itself. And then when you range a target, it will send the data, and you'll get your range displayed in the viewport, as well as the disturbed reticle if you have that turned on. So real quick, an important thing on the mount a lot of people don't know about is, well, A, these just need to be finger tight. You don't need to torque them crazy. That gets it on there. There's a little button here that will unlock it so you can rotate it and flip it to side, but it's obviously not very convenient when you're in the middle of doing stuff. But little did I know, for a long time, there is actually a force to overcome option for this. So all it is you take a lockout screw from, say, a PEC 15 or something like that, typical Lamb lockout screw. And what you want to do is you depress the button and you insert the screw, and what it basically does is it just stows this button in the constantly in the position to be able to move it. It's still, there's some effort. It's not as smooth as the Unity one, but it's the default one that comes with the Voodoo, so that's cool. And I just highly recommend just doing that. It's so much easier to use that way.
All right, fire up the Voodoo for the first time. So you hold down the square button, which is the power. You hold that down for a couple seconds, and you get the login or the power up screen. If you see that Punisher logo, you know you've got an old one, like a first gen like mine. We can see the reticle from my scope here, but the display, the cap is covered. Very first thing you do is you just press once on the square button, and that brings up the menu. It also works as an enter. You can use the arrow keys to move around the menu. Generally, the first thing you want to do is hit calibrate. That will nuke it, non-uniform correctivity. Now you can open up the objective lens cover. You can rotate the objective to get your focus, your focal plane here. Obviously, closer range, further range. You also have a diopter back here for just fine tuning that. Generally, your scope, you want to have it at I think usually infinity works well, but you know, play around with your parallax a bit. I'm going to cover, let's see here. Let's go back to the menu. The next thing to think about, brightness. This is purely the display brightness. So use the arrows to go up and down. On the brightest, midday, yeah, you might use 10. The default of 5 is usually fine in most cases. It gets a bit bright on a dark night if you're going to be scanning and looking through. Next thing, we have the sharpness. The default of 2 is fine, I think. Let's try to zoom in here a little bit. You can see. All it is it's like an edge detection thing. It adds a little bit of sharpness to the image. You can kind of see it there. There's a sharpness 2. It's 0 to 4. 4 gets a bit excessive sometimes. It can accentuate noise. But I usually just leave it on 2, which is fine. All right. E-zoom. This basically lets you cycle through. This is 1 power, 2 power, 4 power, and then from this menu you can also go to 0.5 power, which is, it's actually like, it's like a reduced, it's like adding demagnification. You'd want to use this if you had, say, like a 3 power on the bottom end. So here I'm at, like, this is at 1 power on the optic. And then now this lets me just get in a little bit further. I can see more of the image, but unfortunately you're kind of reduced. You're using reduced display resolution. And you can use the hotkey also. It's the circle button. If you just tap this goes 1, 2, 4, but it doesn't go to the minus or to the 0.5 like the half res. That's purely accessed through the menu. So with the arrow keys, after you've calibrated, the top arrow will activate your gain settings. Gain is 0. Think of it kind of like contrast, basically. Gain is 0 is great in dry environments, but then as you get into more humid environments where the air, everything, the temperatures all start to stabilize, you'll end up having to crank up the gain to kind of see the differences. So generally, higher humidity, higher gain, drier, lower gain. I'm in a pretty dry environment, so I just keep it at 0. The down arrow, when you have a fresh screen like this, down arrow will trigger the different modes. It's white hot, black hot. Black hot's really useful in the day. It looks a lot more like what our brains are kind of used to seeing. Black edge I find completely useless. White edge, let's see if I crank the gain up. White edge I find incredibly useful, especially if you're like dual banding, where you're basically overlaying with say a PVS 14, or in the daytime even, you put it into this mode and only the warmest things will show up, and so you can theoretically like be patrolling somewhere and in the middle of the day look into a bushy area and be able to see an object, a warm object in there that you wouldn't normally see. All right, so that's back to gain. Let's get out of that and let's get back to white hot. All right, white hot. Okay, so the next thing here is the laser. Basically, the Voodoo-S comes with an infrared laser. I think it's sieve power. but you can fire this by pushing the circle button. So you see every little flash, you'll see an IR light. And so this is really useful if you want to signal to someone who's wearing night vision, like, hey, he's over there, or hey, there's an animal over there, and you're seeing it with the thermal. You can just laze it, and you just hold this thing down, it'll fire continuously. I don't use that as much, so I just disable it. So I go to laser, disable. Next, POI Adjust. This is mostly for, this will shift the image. So I'm in vertical, you'll see how it's offsetting slightly. Think of it as just basically, this is when you're using this as a clip-on and you zero the Voodoo to your shots. What you do is you'll shoot a group and then you use this POI Adjust to align it. I don't use it as much just because there is a little bit of play with these mounts. Up close, it's no big deal, and especially if you're not using a disturbed reticle. But okay, so you use POI Adjust if you want to, get a more accurate zero. All right. Next thing's E-Reticle. This thing is kind of important. Turn this on. All this is a little crosshair display, and there's different types. It's not actually different shapes. Like in the Voodoo-M, you've got different actual reticles. In this case, let's go back. E-Reticle. This thing the menus time out after a few seconds. Okay. Let's look at the different types. Adaptive is the most common one, basically. You can see it changes depending on what the background color is. So I just usually leave it on adaptive, but you can force it to go black or white. Adaptive is just more useful. All right, and then this is important. This is probably one of the first things you want to do when you are going to set this up as a clip-on, is you zoom in a bit and you align the E-Reticle to the zero of your, basically to your scope reticle. So you get that aligned. Set your horizontal, and from here you don't necessarily need to use the E-Reticle, but where it becomes important is that things like zoom and stuff like that within the Voodoo are going to be focused on wherever the E-Reticle is centered. So if it's offset in some angle when you zoom, it'll zoom to that location, and it doesn't always use the absolute center of the display. All right, next thing here, advanced. There's a bunch of stuff in here. Chances are you're not going to want to use it necessarily. Disturbed reticle. This basically allows you to feed from a Raptor or a Mars laser rangefinder. If you have the proper cable, it will send the ballistic solver information. All right, let's go back to the advanced menu. Let's turn off disturbed reticle. Yep, unfortunately I have to go all the way back here. Compass, yes, you can activate a digital magnetic compass and it will display. So let's see. This older one, sometimes the processing speed's a little but yeah, with the compass it will display heading. You can also set some other things, like you can set the mode here. Right now it's heading. I can do heading. It's like pitch. Let's see. Let's zoom out and see this better. Yeah, okay, so there you go. You get your, and it's real time. Let's see here, I'll rotate this. So it's giving you, I don't know how particularly useful. I've never really used the compass on this, but it's there. Let's go back. Let's turn off disturbed reticle, and let's go back to compass. Let's turn that off. Calibrating it is pretty straightforward. It's kind of like calibrating a Kestrel. Let's do some more advanced. Analog video. This is kind of cool. This allows you to basically send data from the data port to a digital video recorder of some kind. In this case, I'm using a trigger cam, but you can plug it into a component input. It's only a 640 display, so nothing super fancy. But okay, next thing we have. This is kind of interesting, and I don't know how totally useful it is to this day, but this basically controls, like, it's like a sampling window. So if you were trying to, say, increase the quality of the image, it gives you a window to work with. Basically, like, there's large, small, large, medium, small kind of thing. I think the default they set is something like this one. I think that's fine. I haven't really noticed much of a difference, but if you look in the actual the manual, it shows some examples of where you might want some more. And then this last menu really item here I almost never use. The FPEA, this is the focal plane array. This allows you to also shift and, you know, up, down, left, and right, kind of like the POI shift. You generally aren't going to have to do that. Lux is kind of like a secondary brightness setting that you generally, it's only if you absolutely need something brighter or darker. Battery mode, this is important because you want to choose the different type of battery that you're using. You'll notice here that it said like 16650. You can use those batteries, but you just have to get there's a battery extender kit that does that. Let's see, we already chose that. We're going to go to admin. And factory reset, we don't want to do that. We only want to do about. All right. And another one is snapshot. So this will allow you to take images. And I've already taken some here. It's kind of clunky to sort through. So here I'm just using the arrow keys to kind of cycle through some different images I've taken with this. And it's kind of clunky just going into this menu, but the cool thing is that if you just hold down the two arrow keys at the same time, it will take an image. All right, last bit is profiles. This is kind of important. There's 3 different presets, and what this does is it stores all of the values in the menus for whichever profile you want to use. So generally you set this up for a rifle. Like in this case, profile 1 might be this particular rifle I'm using it on, where I've already aligned the E-Reticle and I've set my brightness and all that stuff. It's just a way to have like preset values, not have to go set everything constantly. And then power off. Power off can also just be, just hold the square button down and it goes away. So that's simple.